I'm always on a horse in a film, and I'm absolutely petrified of horse. Well, I'm not petrified, but you know, it's slightly inhibiting when you're prepared to mount, and the horse takes one look at you, and not you, the other one, no, not you, and then that terrible sigh when I actually sit down, and the horse goes. I feel guilty and on the defensive, and you can't look a horse in the eye and plead with it. You just see these two ears, which are doing all sorts of eccentric things. And you're very high off the ground, it seems to me.
And they haven't got a bonnet. That's what I find so unreliable.
Absolutely. You've got a bonnet. You haven't got even a fox. You know, it isn't even an
The brakes are horrid.
Well, the brakes are non-existent. And on a film called Viva Max, they put me on a stallion. And that I found, because it was all right in town, because motor cars, even American ones, are relatively sexless. But in the country, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, the ears were going all over the place. And in another film, which I shall really never forget, which was Beau Brummel, they decided to shoot out of doors here in Woolwich in November. So it was completely a sort of brown sky with an orange sun you could look at without blinking. It was like a Japanese print. They had the whole brigade of guards out, and I was playing the Prince Regent, and they put me on a horse. I was wearing a cuirass. I couldn't move at all, and very tight pants. And I said, and plumes and all that. I said, are you sure this horse is all right? They said, Peter, really, I mean, I'll tell you if I'm not. So I was lifted onto this thing, and they said, all you've got to do is to sit there, and then another actor's going to come galloping up. He's a very good horseman. The horse will rear slightly to make it more dramatic. He will salute you and say, the parade is ready for inspection, Your Royal Highness. You will do your Nimmo noise. And meanwhile, there was Stuart Granger galloping, splitting lemons in half in the background. And I was supposed to review the parade. Well, I sat on this horse petrified, and they tried to take it about 11 o'clock in the morning with all the brigade of guards and everything. The man galloped up to me, and the parade is ready for inspection, sir. I was ready to say my, carry on. But I felt the saddle was slipping, an awful feeling, and I felt at the back, just to be absolutely sure it wasn't, touched the horse, and the horse immediately knelt. So the director said, cut. He was a German director. Cut it! And they came running up to me and they said, Peter, we forgot to tell you, we didn't think it was necessary, that it is actually a circus horse. And you gave it a signal, unfortunately. So just sit absolutely still. We'll do the signs to the horse from where we are. We're out of shot. We're ready to do anything you know. Next time, parade is ready for your inspection, Your Royal Highness. Thank you, and the reins seemed to me to be muddled up. I did that, and the horse got up on its hind legs. They said, cut it, shouted the director. The man came running up and said, I tell you, must not move. I thought, never mind if they are, who's to know? So they had one last try before it got so dark they couldn't shoot anymore. This time I swore not to move. I sat there like a rat, I was compressed in this thing. Parade is ready for inspection, Your Highness. I was sitting there like a mummy. And then, of course, the scene advanced to a place we hadn't really rehearsed it, and from just behind me came... All the ears started going like that. But the horse was very disciplined, very well trained, and so it expressed itself the only way it knew how. It was a cold November day, and suddenly I was surrounded by steam. I couldn't see. I didn't know where I was. And through that, I heard the German director's voice shouting, cut it, I can't see the prince.
In all your plays, actually, you've always had a kind of military theme, or you've taken religious characters as well, and indeed political characters. I mean, you almost seem to almost have a uniform fetish. And what about your own army career? What kind of shows were you involved with in army entertainment?
I did one with Edith Evans, which was the greatest pleasure I had there, because we did The Rivals at Salisbury, and we had every kind of difficulty, because we didn't have any sets really, we just had very vague sets, but we had one enormous advantage, which was a lovely orchestra made up of the Pioneer Corps, 8 members of the Berlin Philharmonic, under a man called Lance Corporal Professor Dr. Reinhold Striezel, first violin, and his natural enemy, the head of the 7 members of the Vienna Philharmonic, who were there, Private Professor Dr. Rudolf Stiasny. And I thought, well, we'll do The Rivals with a lot of incidental music, and I called Edith the first day at about 11 o'clock, and they started, the musicians, at about 9. So also, said all these British soldiers, ja, also wir nehmen die Boccherini vom Anfang an, 1, 2. Doch eine Unverschämtheit, viel zu langsam. And the first of the cellists said, aber nein, Sie spielen's doch nicht richtig. So soll's sein. And the natural enmity between these two musicians was aggravated, and by 11 they hadn't yet reached more than the second bar. And I'd heard that until I was ready to kill them. Edith arrived with she wore a kind of jockey hat and was watching this. And she suddenly said, can we start? On it went. 12 o'clock, she suddenly said, it's most unprofessional. So I had to go up, I was 22 or something at the time, and I had to go and say to the Germans and Austrians, look, we really have to rehearse now. This is, you don't want the music to be good? It's not a question of that. It is a play with music. It isn't us accompanying you. You're quite correct. Bang! They shut all their cases. They took them out like Chicago gangsters, leaving for an assignation. And the chief turned at the door, looked straight at Edith and said, I don't know how all this shall end. Boom. Well, we rehearsed, and we opened really very successfully. I played Sir Anthony, and Edith played Mrs. Malaprop brilliantly. But I noticed on the first night that they were playing chess on a miniature board, because they were not covered at all. They were on the same level as we were. And on a miniature board made it terribly difficult because there were 15 of them. So if one of them saw a move, and another one would disagree. And so there was a continual, it looked as if they were in the trenches in 1914, creeping in. I prayed that Edith wouldn't notice. And on the third night, right in the middle of a phrase of Sheridan, La, Sir Anthony, you do me the profound And she forgot where she was, and very skillful and brilliant actress that she is, she said, what did you say? I said, I invented some Sheridan to get myself off. I said, Madam, the humours of Bath having no place in our colloquy, shall we to the pump room there to make further duty in... She said, what did you say? And she said, they must stop playing. It's a Gilbertian situation. She said that. So I went up to the Germans after, and I said, look, tonight it was really very good. You noticed, you are a real musician for the first time tonight. I said, yes, but I know what you're going to say. It was too... I said, no, that's not what I'm going to say. You must stop playing chess. You don't want us to play chess? No. It annoys you that we play chess? Yes. No. It's this woman! I said, now look, you can't talk like that. She's a very superb, and it's very off-putting. So the next night, I noticed that Edith couldn't concentrate at all, and I went on, and I saw why. They had now adjusted the lights of their music stands. They were lit from underneath, and they followed her wherever she went. It looked like the dock at Nuremberg, you know. these necks like plucked chicken going into the top of these very loose uniforms, and gloomy. And I came off and I said, no, this has got to stop. First, it was the chess. Correct me if I'm wrong. Forced bonhomie. And I said, first it was the chess. We were playing on a little board. It's not like it was on a big board. I said, it's worse on a little board. Your opinion. Now we mustn't look at this one. We who have seen Paula Wessely in Vienna. And I said, look, you know perfectly well what you're doing. You're being very wicked. All right. The next night, Edith was absolutely brilliant, as only she can be. But she didn't get very many laughs. And I went on, and I wasn't nearly as experienced as she. I tried everything, and I couldn't. There were 5 or 6 generals in front, but that wasn't enough to explain the dullness of the audience. So when I was off the stage, I tiptoed around to the back. They now had done the same thing. They were facing the audience. And the moral of the tale is that they went back to their chess. Because nobody can afford, no person performing can afford to have someone astride their lines of communication. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were hams as much as we were.
Well, this year, you spend a lot of time now in America, don't you, Peter? And it's bicentennial year in America, which has caused tremendous excitement. And I read an article here that you've written in Saturday Review. The headline, which I hasten to add is not yours, that America, the paradoxical, bemused Englishman finds his American cousins at once irritating and thoroughly lovable. I mean, how irritating and how lovable do you find them to be?
Oh, I don't find them irritating at all. In fact, they had puzzling there before, and I begged them to take it out.
Take it out, too.
No, I find it... the one thing I do say about America is that it's a country which, after all, has started with 13 very small states, very highly organized, and very highly moral, and it was relatively easy to make a constitution for that, which has now had to adapt itself to a really enormous agglomeration of people that have nominal control, that take allegiance to a flag and have nominal control over whoever happens to be waving it. So that it's become a very a country full of contradictions and very interesting country, but the real great victory of America is that they're so nice. I just don't think that there's any country in the world that size has a right to be so nice.
One is always surprised how kind they are.
Oh, they're absolutely incredible, and therefore I think that the real part of the Constitution, even, which works, is the writing between the lines. It's probably the only thing that counts. I don't think one ought to tell them. But that works extraordinarily well, because the British were never very nice at the height of their power, except as individuals. They were very, very nice individuals, I'm sure of it. The French weren't nice at all. If you tell the French that they're nice, they take it as an insult. In point of fact, the other day, somebody suggested they were nice, and Monsieur Debray got very angry and said, c'est pas la fonction de la France to be nice. And so I'm just amazed how kind they are.
It's a country of contrast, isn't it, of course? I mean, you've got the Bible bashers on one side and extreme permissiveness on the other.
Yes.
And pornography seems to be going to its absolute limit now.
Well, pornography's come full circle now, and there's an overground newspaper which is sold in Los Angeles. In fact, when the car is stopped at the traffic lights, they come with the evening paper or that. So there's no question of being underground, and there's 6 pages or 7 pages of advertisements in the middle, which are just hilarious beyond belief, I think. There's one which is a sadomasochistic cat house, which says, come and be tortured in our new air-conditioned dungeon. It's kind of self-defeating. I mean, one can imagine the wretched man there, crucified, saying, before you start, could we have the heating down a bit? No sense whatever. And the other one, which is strictly for the gullible, is an advertisement saying, obscene phone calls from guaranteed nude girl. That's really pathetic. I think it's really absolutely...
What do you think it all is adding up to? I mean, do you think it's sort of heralding the end of a civilization?
I'm wondering if it isn't nature's way of stopping the population explosion by destroying all instinct. I think hence unisex, because, I mean, in the 14th century, nobody had need of a marriage counselor. You couldn't hide the facts of life from anybody because everybody lived near a farm. Everything was very clear. But now I think we're really in the most pathetic straits in many ways. I don't think anything is inherited anymore. I think everything has to be learnt.
You've always been a man that's terribly concerned about mankind, and you do a lot of work for UNICEF, don't you?
Yes.
And are you hopeful for mankind?
I don't know how one can be hopeful for the latest figures are absolutely astonishing. I mean, which is a UNESCO figure actually, that there are but now 15 tons of high explosive for every head of population in this world.
And the number of...
Which is really ridiculous.
Yes.
And also, in this case of UNICEF, that the countries of the world spend the same amount of money on the 100 million children who need it. They spend the same amount of money on children every year as they spend on armaments every 2 hours. Well, those are such repellent figures that I think one simply can't refrain from trying to do something about it.
And the number of underprivileged or hungry children is hundreds of millions, isn't it, actually? I mean,
yes, it's 900 million, I think, is the last. Well, it's going up, of course, in spite of what I said about unisex.
Do you believe in a God?
I believe in I believe in I believe in the balance. I believe in a celestial balance, if you like, but I can't really say that I can believe in a God as it's outlined by, as it is envisaged by priests. In the same way that I can't, in order to love the theatre, I don't see why I should love agents.
When you were about 9 years old, you saw a chicken having its neck wrung. This distressed you.
Don't remind me.
Well, it did distress you, did it
Yes,
not?
it did, yes.
And then you went back home and you invented a utopia, and the first law of that country was one which said that chickens would no longer have their necks wrung. I don't know whether you can remember what else that utopia consisted of.
I invented a country which became very, very real to me, and which is one, when anything big happens in the world, I ask myself to this day what the attitude of my country is, rather than what the attitude of existing countries are, in order to get a more detached point of view. And it's been very helpful to me to crystallize my opinions, and therefore I have roots. But I have roots in the imagination, in my country.
Because America is a country where people come from many different backgrounds, with many different roots, I mean, often Russian roots. Do you find that this adds to the excitement of America, or does it make people who are there dissatisfied and unsure that when they actually come to America, the dream has not been realized?
I think America is the only country where what happened to my wife and I in New York could have happened. We hailed a taxi, and it became clear immediately that the driver couldn't drive. You know. And then he went into a one-way street the wrong way. And my wife, being French, anything she says sounds ironic. She says, "Do you live here?" The taxi driver said, "Listen, lady, when you pay me good money, I not live in this place." So I looked at them, because the American taxis have the name and a photograph of the driver. And his name was Heinrich Bernstein. But Heinrich Bernstein was a very thin man with buck teeth, and one can almost hear his voice coming out of the photograph. Probably a student of some sort who's doing this in his spare time, you know, very intense like that, in a Canadian jacket. And the back of this man was like an elephant's knee, his neck was. And he was smoking a pipe, at least he was smoking a cigarette out of a miniature pipe, so it was right in front of his eye, and the smoke was getting in. And he went backwards in the street without looking, and shouting winding down the window and shouting at the people, "You're a lot of bombs. I never see so many bombs. All of you bomb people, rotten bomb people." I said, "Where do you live?" He said, "Me? I live in a civilized country. I live in Soviet Union." The taxi driver in New York. So he said, "And I got a daughter. What a bitch, this stupid bomb woman. What a stupid bitch, this girl. And she married this bomb," pointing to Mr. Heinrich Bernstein. "And they call me here every year. They invite me 1 month here. I should breathe the free air. I don't got what the ideas they got. And then I'm on Rockville Island, Rockville Center, Long Island. They're young people. They're always making love, looking television. This stupid television over the commercial coming the way. You get used to one program is commercial. You switch or a commercial. You never know where you're looking. I get bored. And so I take the taxi, try to make little money. I got another daughter. She's no more intelligent than this bitch. But she's a nun in Romania, but at least the weather good. We reached the destination. And I say to, thinking I'm going to surprise him, I say to him, слушайте, я тоже русский человек. I'm also a Russian. He wasn't a bit surprised. He thought I was in the same position as he was, wanted to compare notes. So he said, where'd you come from? I said, I don't come from there anymore, but my family came from Saratov. Ah, provincia. Moskva. We're all searching a new client.